bit of housekeeping. We're still in COVID times, so please let's all remember to mask up, social distance, sanitize, and keep safe. So I would like to just make sure that your experience here will be, safe, but also a very productive discussion where we look at, important things that are affecting our economy and also the country at large. So WEAC is a Women Entrepreneurship Access Center that is supported by the U.S. State Department, and that supports women by providing an environment where they can start, grow and scale their businesses. And we do this in all the key sectors of the economic setup, even in the very programs where women are not so much supported or represented in sectors like energy, construction, agriculture, and all the rest. So we do this through programs and also projects that help women to just get their businesses to market as quickly as possible and also start generating that economic and momentum and society change to bring about economic recovery and also change in our communities that we serve. So thank you so much for coming here today. Today we're here to discuss putting SMEs at the forefront of economic recovery, the importance of SMEs in a post-COVID recovery and employment creation in Zambia. So our moderator will be Mrs. Nambula Kachumi, who is Executive Director of WEAC Zambia. She will introduce the panelists once we get to that stage. And we're hoping to have 50 minutes of mostly, the panelists going through some questions, and then we'll have a Q&A from the audience. We expect this to be very interactive and also, very engaging so that we can bring out important issues that are affecting everybody from policy to implementers to supporting, organizations in the SME sector. So basically that is our program today. And there's teas and coffees outside. So at some point, if you feel water or something, please feel free to go out and grab a cup of coffee or some juice. And so I think basically that's why we're here. And at this moment in time, I will call upon the panelists to step forward and take their seats on the stage. And then I'll hand over to our Executive Director, Nambula, to take it up from here. So please step forward and come through. Thank you so much. And then once the front seats are vacant, people can please come forward and occupy the front seats. Thank you so much, everyone. Over to you, Nambula. Thank you. We can give them a hand.
Okay, thank you so much, Phyllis. You deserve a hand as well. So good morning, everyone. We're very glad to see you this morning. Thank you to our audience for making the time to be available for this very important panel discussion, which is very close to the hearts of many of us. So we welcome you today. I'd also like to welcome our panelists, a very diverse group of individuals coming from institutions that are pushing forward policies and agendas to support SME development in Zambia. So welcome, and it's very nice seeing you this morning. So like Phyllis said, my name is Nambula Kachumi, and I am your moderator this morning, taking you through our discussions. And today we are looking at a very important topic where we are highlighting key economic drivers, the current entrepreneurial ecosystem in Zambia, in line with putting SMEs in the forefront of economic recovery. So as we know, SMEs are a key economic driver. And I think a lot of issues are coming up in terms of how entrepreneurship is the new economic development model worldwide. And so our interest is to see that we are providing and enhancing the business operating environment for SMEs, for startups, and entrepreneurs within the country. And this is why I guess we are here with our panelists, trying to get their insights on the current state of the economy and how their institutions and also they themselves as individuals are supporting this agenda. So the panel will highlight the importance of SMEs to the Zambian economy and address current policies and regulations that advantage or disadvantage SMEs, including access to finance, business development support, and the state of the entrepreneurial ecosystem, in line with the MSME strategy, the 8th National Development Plan, and the wider COVID response. So we'll look at two key areas. But before we go there, I'd just like to sort of quote the preamble from the Bank of Zambia, which is basically looking at the targeted medium-term refinancing facility. I quote, "The Zambian economy has been facing significant macroeconomic challenges as reflected in low growth, high fiscal deficits, rising inflation, and debt service obligations, as well as low international reserves. The outbreak of COVID-19 pandemic has worsened the situation as it is already having an adverse impact on the economy through the closure of businesses and restrictions on important trade routes and countries fight the spread of the pandemic. And obviously, SMEs have not been spared." So to help me dive into this topic, today with me, I have my panel, which consists, and I'd like to, at this point to take this opportunity to introduce them. So we have Ms. Evelyn Chilomo Kaingu, who is the CEO and co-founder of Lupiya. I'd also like to mention that Evelyn is an alumni of the WEAC Entrepreneurship Network from our time of establishment. So we've seen her and how her business has grown over the years. So we are very excited that we are on this platform together, just understanding more about what has been happening. We also have Mr. Trevor Hambai, who's the senior partner at Development Finance Associates. I think Trevor's face is not new to most of you. He's been one of the champions of SME development and entrepreneurship and doing quite a lot, in terms of supporting economic recovery within the country. We are very privileged also to have Ms. Brenda Mwanza, who is Assistant Director Financial Sector Development, who is representing Ms. Frida Tamba, the Director, Non-Bank Financial Institution Supervision. You're welcome. Morning. And representing Mr. Andrew Kazilimani, the CEO for National Advisory Board for Impact Investing, is Mr. Hagai Chomba, Program Officer. Am I right? Yes. And we're doing quite a lot with the NABII too. We're very happy with the steps that you're taking in bringing impact investment to Zambia, so we're very glad to have you here. Thank you so much. We have Mr. Gabriel Musentekwa, Director Training at the Zambia Development Agency, representing Mr. Mukula Makasa, the Director General. He's also not new, I think, to most of you. We've interacted in many circles, and we're happy that he's able to come through to contribute to this process. Lastly, but not the least, we are very privileged to have representation from the Ministry of Commerce, Trade and Industry. And representing the Permanent Secretary is Mr. Kelvin Kamayoyo. Thank you so much for joining us this morning. So like Phyllis mentioned, we're hoping this can be a very interactive time for all of us to make contributions and ask key questions. So welcome once again. So I guess we would dive right into it. And to introduce the panel discussion, I would like to pose one major question, which is the main theme of this discussion, to all our panelists, just to hear their views very quickly in 1 minute. So you can introduce yourself and let us know what opportunities are there for Zambia to catalyze growth and employment through SMEs. And how can SMEs be supported to drive economic recovery in Zambia? I would like to start from my far end with Mr. Musentekwa.
Thank you very much. The MSMEs are actually quite key in the development of the national economy. Because if you look at the role that they play in terms of creating jobs, in terms of contributing to the national treasury, in terms of also contributing to the reduction in the poverty levels, you'll see that the sector is quite key in that. And then the opportunities that lies with MSMEs are quite vast. It only needs to take a late entrepreneur or an investor who should be able to look through and then see those opportunities. We have opportunities that lies in the agribusiness sector. The agribusiness sector is one sector that actually is coming up very, very well and has somehow able to help most of the MSMEs, navigate their way into running their businesses right. During this time of the COVID, we saw that when there was a lockdown, most of the MSMEs, the smallholder farmers, the cooperatives and the like, they actually were stranded with where to take their items. And as a result, they began to consume most of their capital. As a result, during this time when the economy has been opened up, it has been a bit difficult for them now to come through and then be able to navigate very well. So the opportunity that is there is that there are value chains that are being actually maintained or looked into in terms of how they contribute to these value chains for them to be able to come up well. The other aspect within the same is actually looking at how they can be aggregated. And after the aggregation, then they form critical mass for them now to look at the market and then be able to have access to the markets that will help them to generate the funds that are required. Then, apart from that, you look at the ICT or the technology. During this time, there is need actually to utilize the technology platforms in terms of online, business. This has now become, the thing of the day, which most of them, if they take advantage of it, they are able, to do business without much ado. And then,
well, you can round up and then we pass on the same question, yes.
Yeah, thank you very much. Yeah, so apart from ICT, then we also look at how they are able to switch over from their normal businesses to the businesses that actually are being permitted within this sector, within the situation. Because not all businesses are thriving within this situation. So they need now to look at which ones is thriving. So manufacturing of items that will help, to mitigate the COVID situation actually is one opportunity where they should be able to, to delve into, for them to navigate within this. Yeah, maybe I can leave other colleagues for them.
Sure.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for that. You can pass over the mic. So Evelyn, can you share your thoughts on how SMEs can be supported to drive economic recovery in Zambia within the COVID context?
Okay.
Under a minute.
Okay. I'll try my best to summarize because I'm an SME and we have so many challenges, but I'll just narrow it down to the context of financing because that's the sector I come from. A lot of SMEs are really struggling with financing at this point in time, and so they are facing so many income gaps. And the one key recovery that definitely every entrepreneur will need is actual financing. But the actual financing that entrepreneurs will need is patient capital. The way we are designed as financial institutions is to to really provide financing with quick turnaround time, which suffocates the small SMEs, and we are not putting out a product that is as supportive for their growth. And so if we are going to see some sort of support that's going to come in from the government in some sort of reform or some sort of policy strategy for specific SMEs, we need to see patient capital being a key driver into supporting so many SME platforms. And eventually, we also need to see a bigger push into the collateral credit guarantee scheme that is actually in place with the Ministry of Commerce. A lot of us are not aware of such a platform, and if we can quickly see that key participation from the ministry, which will, we believe will see a lot of support and recovery for SMEs. A lot of talk around the market now is around the new COVID relief fund that is out there for SMEs, and a lot of SMEs are not even benefiting from such a deliberate policy. But it's because of a lot of lack of deliberate, more or less inclusive financing opportunities for the smaller guys to be able to then take advantage of opportunities like this to be able to participate in quick economic recovery.
Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you very much, moderator, and good morning, colleagues. My name is Kelvin Tamayo from the Ministry of Commerce, and I'm Assistant Director. I'm representing the Permanent Secretary, and I know the moderator on the schedule. There was another colleague who should have come, Mr. Chikoti, but I think he is also committed with the other assignment. So, moderator, just to address the question that has been presented, I must first mention that as the Ministry of Commerce, Trade and Industry, one of our fundamental functions is to formulate and implement policies that focus on trade and industrial development for inclusive growth. And when we say inclusive growth, includes also SMEs. And that's why at the implementation level, the ministry has formulated the micro, small, and medium enterprise policy, which is essentially put in place to address the constraints that affect the SMEs. Now, just to amidst the COVID, the SMEs, we all acknowledge that they have not been exempted from the effects, the adverse effects of the COVID pandemic. And as a ministry, we also see an opportunity within this pandemic, because now, from the trade point of view, essentially that all countries were closing. There was lockdowns. Therefore, what it means that the cross-border trade was minimized. And when it's minimized, the next point of call is to look inward. And therefore, as the Ministry of Commerce, one of the things that we embarked on was to ensure that we now accelerate the implementation of the local content strategy, and try to ensure that we change the mindset of our people to also now to start adding value on the products, on the raw material that they produce, essentially just to substitute what previously used to be exported, imported. Now, due to the COVID, there's a lockdown, you can no longer now import those products. So really, the opportunities are still there, and from where we stand, even in the midst of the COVID, our proclamation is that can we now try to utilize the institutions that the Ministry of Commerce have put in place. Colleagues, you may wish to know that the Ministry of Commerce, it may not be in all the provinces as listed as Ministry of Commerce, but the Ministry of Commerce has presence in all the provinces, and it has a footprint through its statutory bodies. And we have several statutory bodies. My colleague from Zambia Development Agency is also from the Ministry of Commerce. We have Business Regulatory Authority, we have Zambia Bureau of Standards, we have Citizen Economic Empowerment, we have Zambia Compulsory Standards Agency. All these institutions are there to ensure that they implement policies that have been formulated by the Ministry of Commerce. And like other ministries are wholly in all the provinces as ministries. But in our case, we have decentralized. So please, I would urge that all the people who want access to services that pertain to business environment or trade, export or import, you utilize these institutions. In fact, we are not only even just in the provinces, even at the borders. Our statutory bodies are still there. Now, with respect to how can SMEs be supported to drive economic recovery amidst the COVID? We realize that the SMEs amidst the COVID are the most hit, because the larger you are, the more strength you have to stand resilient, to be resilient, to stand the shocks that come with COVID. So, sometime last year, we undertook a study to measure the impact of COVID on the industries. And most, as you may all agree with me, that
So I'll ask you to hold your thought just there, because we want to dive back into the policy framework in our next question. So if that's okay with you,
okay,
I'll pass.
Okay,
maybe you can just wind up and...
Just to mention that one of the opportunities that lie is that we appreciate even this platform that you have created for the ministry to be invited to engage with the people, because we see it as a sensitization platform for us to bring closer some of the interventions that we have, and also to explain to you how best you can access them, because I know time is also a constraint in business and information is a strength of growth. Thank you.
Thank you so much. That's very useful information. So I will pass on the mic with the same question. Ms. Mwanza, how can SMEs be supported to drive economic recovery in Zambia? Under 1 minute.
Okay, thank you. I will just add on to what my colleagues have actually put forward. I think we can also leverage on the available digital financial platforms to ensure that the products are designed affordably and to even reach the most remote areas. This is a platform that can be engaged in terms of innovative design as well as affordable charges, so that we can have more products, financial products. We know that financing is a challenge. These can reach the most remote parts where most of the SMEs are located. Another area would be to strengthen already existing policies and strategies. We also have a model called the movable asset-based lending model, which was developed really to provide financing to the SMEs who have challenges of collateral. And I think for now, what we need to do is to actually raise awareness and strengthen the capacities of both the financial service providers as well as the SMEs, so that they are able to tap into this product, which has been implemented actually since 2017, but has low usage. I believe those are the main areas. Of course, with that targeted medium frame facility, which is in place as introduced by our moderator. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you. Just to mention again that my name is Hagai Chomba. I'm from the National Advisory Board. For most of you who are not aware of the National Advisory Board, is that we are a platform-based organization, and our role really is to promote impact investment in Zambia. And we speak of impact investment, it really anchors mostly on early-stage businesses, including SMEs, and which is this topic is actually much importance to us. So I think from an impact perspective, what COVID has done is really heightened the already existing problem that we are facing, especially also for businesses. These problems have been sort of spread more, and the need for social intervention as well as environmental intervention that addresses these things becomes then critical. And I think to understand well or to address how SMEs can be supported during this economic recovery, it's also important for us to draw back and think through what are these existing problems. And through our work that we've been doing as National Advisory Board, we have been informed by a lot of data and research that we've done about previous year. And I think there are two key things among others, which I think various speakers have alluded to, which are really hindering SME growth. And first is information asymmetries. So there's a lot of information asymmetries, and when I say information asymmetry, I really speak to businesses not really knowing what kind of right capital is right for them. Where do they get this? Because there are various types of capital, and I think if I mentioned patient capital, which is actually one of those things we're actually advocating for, but also where do you get this kind of capital? Which organization, which investors are providing this capital? But also on that is what are investors really looking for? I think which is very, very critical. You find that the business is seeking capital and has got this business plan, but still there's a mismatch between what investors are looking for and what they have. The last one is a ticket size mismatch. And what we found in the research we did just a year ago is that there is a ticket mismatch size when it comes to SMEs. Mostly they are seeking lower investment deals, less than $50,000, which is very understandable, but most of the investors, local but also international, are seeking a bit higher investment capital, like over $100,000 and going up. So there's that mismatch, and it's brought about by two things. One is that even though there's this mismatch, you find that most of these SMEs are not investment ready. So they need a lot of support through business development services. And I think there are a couple of organizations, WEAC has been doing that over the past few years, which are supporting these businesses to make them investor ready. And what we think is that going forward, driving SME growth in the recovery will really, will require a holistic approach. So this means that it's not only supporting businesses through BTS alone as a single component, but really looking at the whole value chain from business support through maybe investment enterprise clustering for those businesses which are small, to BTS, which is linked to commercial opportunities. Because what we've seen is that if BTS also is just done alone, there's become a mismatch between at the point where enterprise receives capital to a point where the investment is actually made. So there's this kind of holistic approach which is needed, and that requires key actors working together, collaborative model from government to investors, to market builders who are working with various companies, really work together to ensure that the whole chain of SMEs, not only access to finance, but because, and I know we focus most on access to finance as such a component of it, but there are all other various factors which are involved for business growth. I think I'll end there. I've got a few things I would like to speak to, but maybe we'll expand more in our discussion. Thank you.
Thank you. Over to you, Trevor. Thank you.
Thank you, Nambo. So my name is Trevor Ambai. I'm from Development Finance Associate. So if we're speaking to the importance of SMEs, firstly, you must appreciate that it's universally accepted that SMEs are the economic drivers of any economy. And that is the first factor that we must consider. The second one is speaking to employment creation. Empirical evidence basically suggests that 4 out of every 5 jobs are created by SMEs. If you're looking at the Zambian environment, you find that 900,000 jobs, we've got 900,000 jobs that are in the formal sector, and we've got 2.1 million jobs that are in the informal sector. And that informal sector is really SMEs. The third one is speaking to economic contribution. The economic contribution really is the key issue that is speaking to the trickle-down effect of the economic growth going to the masses. And what we do find in terms of studies is that only 38%, the SMEs are contributing 38% to the GDP in the country. So we've got 60% of our GDP which is really being externalized, and we need to be able to reverse this so that it's actually supporting the growth of the Zambian people. If you're speaking about the opportunity from a macro perspective is that 93% of the private sector is SMEs. And we've got policies that are really supporting the 7%, which is the Investment Act under the FDI. And we need to be able to strategize that we are supporting the SMEs to be able to take that opportunity. In terms of how do we support the SME, I think the first aspect is that what we've been really pushing all the time is that we're talking about our policy documents. We've got too many policy documents. We need to do implementation. And that is where it starts. When we're actually doing implementation, then we're actually seeing where the challenges are and what we need to be able to speak towards having to change those policy documents. Thank you.
So
Thank
two
you.
mics that can go across.
Sure. Thank you so much, Trevor. And I think this will take us to getting more insights from Ministry of Commerce, Trade and Industry. You've touched on very key points with regards, the policy, the current policy framework. How can we take these reforms forward to ensure that they're meaningful and they're actually benefiting, SMEs themselves? Before we go there, I would just like to acknowledge some of the enterprise support organizations that are currently working in Zambia, to improve the business operating environment and also ensure that they're taking very specific steps in order to support the entrepreneurial ecosystem in Zambia. So WEAC, under its third objective of strengthening the entrepreneurial ecosystem, is working with a number of enterprise support organizations. Mara is here from Jacaranda Hub. We have a hub collaboration network which brings together different ESOs to support enterprise growth. We also have Bongo Hive. We're working with Impact Hub and with Development Finance Associates as well, looking into some of the key areas that can support the effort around supporting SMEs better. So I just thought it was important to mention. We also have Mrs. Maureen Sumbwe, who is from ZAFAWIB. She's also a key partner when it comes to supporting women-owned businesses and basically helping to facilitate a platform that enables businesses that are women-owned to move forward. So thank you for that. So I'll come to you, Ministry of Commerce, Trade and Industry. So we know that the overall mission of the ministry is obviously to support competitiveness, growth in a very inclusive way. So going by what you had mentioned earlier, we want to get a better understanding of currently the kind of policies and reforms that we have. How can we take them, forward, especially in the COVID context? So can you share some of the achievements that the ministry has experienced in terms of formulating policies that speak to the needs of SMEs and MSMEs in Zambia? So if you could just highlight that, but also share what you see as setbacks that the ministry has been faced with in moving these policies ahead during the pandemic.
Okay, thank you very much, Margaret, and thank you, my colleague who has raised the issue of how effective the policy reforms have been. Let me mention that, yes, I agree the Ministry of Commerce is charged with the responsibility to formulate policies and also to implement and equally track the extent of implementation. I must also mention that it's very unfortunate that in our country, going by the statistics that the previous speaker mentioned, to say in terms of headcount in the economic participation, you find that there are more SMEs unlike the other economic actors. And in terms of contribution to the GDP, there's an inverse relationship, which is very sad because I expected a positive correlation that when you are many, you should be able to account for a significant contribution to the gross domestic product. So this is unfortunate, but this is of interest to the ministry and of concern, so that we try to reshape the policy framework and make it more targeted and reverse this elasticity, which is very bad for economic sustainability. So in terms of the policies that are already existing within the Ministry of Commerce, you may wish to know that the economic system that we are currently is that of a market.
Can you hold it just right there? We seem to be having some challenges with sound.
Maybe I can use your mic.
Sure.
It's there adjusting. Okay. Okay, thank you very much. So, yeah, I was just trying to recap where we are coming from in terms of the economic system. Previously, before the economic reforms of the early 1990s, we all know that the economic system that prevailed in this country was largely driven by the public sector. Post the 1990 reforms, which were spearheaded or championed by the Structural Adjustment Program, we embraced the economic system that permits liberalization, both inland and also in terms of cross-border, in terms of trade. Now, inside inland or in the domestic economy, what essentially meant was that now private citizens should take ownership of the assets. And therefore, this permits them to engage into economic activities and realize the motive of an individual or a corporate entity that is actively involved in economic activity. But now, you needed some kind of a referee or regulation. Hence, the Ministry of Commerce, since the early 1990s, there were a number of policies that were done. Some of them even covered aspect of institutional transformation. My colleague on my left from Zambia Development Agency, I think previous they were not the Zambia Development Agency, it should have been called the Export Development Board. I'm sure you will say the correct name. I know a lot of institutions which are under the Ministry of Commerce. So, but they were more or less like consolidated. So, and hence we came up with the Zambia Development Agency, comprising of over 6 institutions previously. So this also led to the enactment of an act, the ZDA Act number 11/06, that established the institution. Aside from that, with respect to looking at the needs of the SMEs, we also formulated and enacted the Citizen Economic Empowerment Act, essentially to address the constraints that the SMEs were exposed to. Largely, the SMEs are issues of access to finance. And therefore, CEC was established to be able to provide access to finance with flexible terms. Of course, I am aware there are some teething issues with respect to probably documentation, compilation, and submitting the bankable business proposition. These are ongoing. They should be ongoing things that we should all, in a concerted effort, address in order to increase or to achieve the goal of the citizen economic empowerment. We also realize that much as the SMEs can access the funds, the next thing is that they'll be subjected to participate on the downstream market. Meaning, you produce your own product, now you go and sell, and you have to compete. So how should your product be marketed? Hence, the Ministry of Commerce came up with the National Quality Policy. And there are statutes that have been enacted to support that policy in place. The issues of branding, the issues of development of standard norms for the products, the issues of labeling for the products are all covered under that. Now, still on the downstream market, because that's very critical, because it gives you an incentive to continue producing what you are producing. If you are not selling, the next season or the next cycle, you may not find it attractive to participate in the market. Therefore, there's need for an environment which is fair, and hence we came up with the Competition and Consumer Protection Policy to ensure that we protect the competition process and also to protect the SMEs from unfair trading. I recall maybe about 15 years ago, there was even a provision in the Competition and Fair Trading Act which exempted the SMEs on certain obligations. So all this was to ensure that we try to pop up the SMEs, give them an additional leverage in the market. So these are some of the policies. Now, the most critical one which demonstrates that government recognizes the importance of the SMEs. We came up with, or we formulated the micro, small, and medium scale enterprise policy, which I think has come to an end that last year, but we are in the process of reviewing and formulating a revised MIC policy. Still, the fundamental issues in these policies that we recognize that market environments have changed, dynamics have changed, new players have come on board, some have faded away. The most important issue for us is to ensure that the survival rate of SMEs in business is increased. It should not be short-term or short-lived. We want SMEs to live longer in the market so that they continue to survive and thrive. Hence, we came up with this policy and we are now reviewing it. One of the issues we want to address the skills development and business literacy.
I might have to stop you there so that you can hold those thoughts and we come back to your third round of questions.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much. And I hope I'm being useful to some of these issues because we are using this platform for us to also educate and also engage. And we also want to hear from you. What are the constraints that you face in as far as interacting with the Ministry of Commerce and its agencies?
Thank you, Mr. Kamoimo. I think those issues you have raised are very key. And like you have said, there might be very little education around what is happening in policy formulation and reforms. And I think this is an area which requires a multi-sectoral approach and for various sectors of the economy to participate. So we are happy that you can highlight all those policy reform areas, and hopefully we can find an intersection between, public and private engagement to take them forward. So at this moment, I'll move to Mrs. Brenda Mwanza, Bank of Zambia. Just picking up from what Mr. Kamoimo has said, we know for a fact that access to finance remains a key challenge. It's almost becoming a cliche, but this is a conversation that we need to continue having. And so we've seen a lot of developments from the central bank in terms of formulating better financial instruments that can enable SMEs to access these facilities better, including initiatives like the medium-term refinancing plan. But we've also heard of some of the challenges in terms of certain segments of the economy accessing some of these facilities, like, for example, rural-based populations, also women-owned businesses, as well as certain market segments that have no access or have no information around how this works. Can you please tell us a bit more about these developments at Central Bank and what you're doing, rather, to ensure that we take a more inclusive approach?
Okay, thank you. As you have rightly put it, the Bank of Zambia put into place the targeted medium-term liquidity facility, financing facility of 10 billion kwacha in response to the difficulties that the economy has been facing, more so after the COVID pandemic. We noted that the productive sectors of the economy were faced with challenges in terms of particularly repayment of their loans and sustaining their businesses because of challenges with financing. So this facility, since it was instituted, had a few teething problems, but I'm happy to report that over time, we have now been able to disperse about 8.7 billion kwacha out of the original 10 billion earmarked. And although 6.9 billion went to commercial banks, we've had 1.8 billion going to the non-bank financial institutions. And as you know, for the SMEs, they tend to benefit more from the non-bank microfinance lending. So we noted, of course, that there's a challenge in terms of the disparity. You notice that the more funds have been going to the commercial banks, who tend to find the bigger clients, industry clients, while the small scale and the SMEs only benefit, as well as individuals are benefiting from microfilms. Now, I think really it's clear that there are two issues here. On the supply side, we've tried to encourage the financial service providers to actually raise awareness in terms of these facilities availability, so that more of them, more clients can come through and negotiate with them in terms of the financing availability to them. On the demand side, we noticed that the SME sector on its own has got peculiar, unique sort of barriers within themselves. The biggest being lack of collateral, effective collateral, and poor financial management. There's also the issue of financial literacy, skills in terms of business record keeping while they're running their businesses. So these barriers within themselves inhibit their ability to approach financing institutions, to get loans. And even unfortunately, some of them who will try to approach the institutions to get the loans find that they are unable to provide the requirements that will enable them. And so more often or not, you'll find that their loans are not successful. So these are areas where I think it's important that partnerships are bridged between the SME associations, the financial service providers, as well as donors and partners, financial partners, to come together to, I think, develop these value chain propositions where there is financial education provided, business skills in terms of record keeping, as well as managing the business, how to access loan facilities from the financial sector. If these things are done, I believe we can actually see a push towards more SMEs being able to afford to access the credit from the microfinance institutions. As a bank ourselves, we are in the process of assessing how the performance has been, so that we can improve on how it can be, we can improve the absorption capacity, particularly for the SME sector. Thank you.
So thank you so much. It's really refreshing to know that the absorption capacity has increased. We were very worried when we heard that only about 1.7 billion had been accessed by commercial banks and microfinance institutions. So that's really good to note. I will come to Evelyn. So Evelyn, welcome once again. So can you maybe perhaps tell us a little bit more about Lupiya, what you do, what motivated you to go into the fintech industry, which was not very common 5 years ago when you established Lupiya, especially for women-owned startups. So we just want to understand what your journey has been, what helped you to start and to get to where you are now. We also know that recently you got an investment, a venture capital of about $1 million, which was very exciting because, as you know, there are very few female-owned fintech companies that are venture-backed currently, not only in Africa, but globally. So it's very exciting to note. So maybe just a little bit of how did you get here?
Okay, the story of Lupiya is one I like to tell all the time, and just because I think it's born out of very simple concepts and born with the backbone of the WEAC platform, and we can never mention Lupiya without mentioning WEAC. So Lupiya is basically an online lending platform that provides financing to individuals and businesses. We created Lupiya with the goal of providing attainable financial services to marginalized communities that do not have access to formal financial services. So one of the key things that we try to do at Lupiya every day is to create creative technologies that foster very simplified requirements for individuals to be able to attend financing from us. So the biggest hurdle and challenge that we have as a platform is to reach our financing to the last mile, and we are a champion of women entrepreneurs. And what we try to do every day is to create financial solutions for women to be able to access financing to us in a very affordable manner, while we are as well an online platform that is operating very leanly to be able to satisfy this solution. So when we started Lupiya 5 years ago, that is in 2016, we went to the WEAC platform with nothing but just $500, which at the time was 5,000 kwacha. So I think if I say $500 today, it's a bit more money. But it's very simple concepts of how we were meant to go through the business model, scaling up tools, and very simple concepts of just generating as much revenue as we could to be able to meet certain requirements at a particular point in time when we were able to approach investors, approach financial institutions for financing. And so it's been a really interesting journey for us in terms of what the losses have been, what the struggle has been to actually finally get here. And we are happy to at least finally say that we have an online platform that is across the country, and we are able to provide financing to so many women. We still have a target of reaching 60% of women in the country, but we can at least happily say that our loan book is cognizant of seeing at least so many women entrepreneurs who are able to get facilities from us. And we always choose to champion women who are really from the grassroots, and these are people who are selling in the markets, who have very small businesses, who have very small orders, and are being facilitated by either government institutions or private institutions like the WEAC platform or any form of sectors that we are able to onboard onto our platform and see how best we can look at it as in a case-to-case basis. But of course, we have a mandate as well to show how scalable our platform can be to our investors or people who have a stake in our company. And so that's pretty much the story of Lupiya. And to then just answer your question on what sort of opportunities have we taken advantage of, and I cannot emphasize enough the private institutions such as WEAC that are really fostering platforms for women like ourselves to be able to have opportunities like the face-to-face investor platform where we can get investments such as $1 million US. When we got this investment, we were shocked to actually even find out that this was almost sort of unheard of in the ecosystem in Southern Africa. And we were almost immediately looked at as champions, looked at as having overcome such a big barrier. And we are just happy enough to be able to have that opportunity to foster such a platform. And through partners like we are able to even sit in front of so many people who are very respected industry leaders and be able to have a say for SMEs. I always like to remove M in SMEs just because a lot of us are on the S side of SME, which is very small, and we face so many barriers that a lot of industries are not taking into account of. Policies are not inclusive into such platforms, and you'll be shocked to hear that even small things like PACRA registration fees is something that is a challenge to small individuals like us starting out in the market. And it's platforms like We Create or Bongo Hive or many industrial players that are fostering such opportunities. And I feel I stand in the right platform to say this is one of the biggest barriers that we were facing at the time. Simple registration fees that we can't attain as individuals. One of the other challenges that we have as an innovative platform is just being able to easily integrate into the national financial grid, which is the banks. We are seen as very small, we can't really demonstrate capability and potential. And so we feel a lot of what barriers entrepreneurs are facing out there is the deliberate cushion by the government to literally say we are going to push money and compensate and cover for this demographic to be able to rise into the SME space. So we are not able to do such things as much as we would want to demonstrate that. It would have never been possible with platforms such as We Create Zambia. So if this, and I hope I am able to represent a lot of SMEs by bringing this point out there, it's just to emphasize the really small, deliberate policies, or rather not policy, because policy is already created, but more or less saying, can we make simple solutions for the industry to be able to benefit? And I can't emphasize, especially that we're talking about employment as well. It's really expensive to employ someone in this country. We have so many things to think about, including ZRA, including NAPSA, and all sorts of things required to be able to facilitate employment. But like Mr. Hambai mentioned, is that the SMEs are going to be the blood of any economy, and if we are going to get there as a country, we need to do it deliberately in such a way that we are answering solutions such as this, and these solutions can only come from partners, in really serious interventions into partners such as WEAC, and I know there's ZDA, and I know he's going to say a lot about ZDA and the entrepreneurs, but I can comfortably say here that ZDA is really fostering the mandate of the medium entrepreneurs and not necessarily the small enterprises in the country.
Great. Thank you so much, Evelyn, and it's really good to hear this from your perspective as you are representing most small and growing businesses in Zambia that are facing similar challenges. So I hope we can continue those discussions. So I'll come to Trevor. Trevor, you have been a very consistent champion of entrepreneurship development, SME support. You're obviously doing a lot in terms of business development support itself. You have a passion to see businesses start and grow. And you know, in the context of COVID, we know that the economy rather, is grappling with a lot of challenges. So can you just give us a snapshot on what the scenario is? Why do you think the country is struggling with very specific economic factors that have hindered or hampered SME growth in Zambia? And are we doing enough to support or to put SMEs at the forefront of the economy?
Thank you, Namba. I'm trying not to go on a tantrum.
I am afraid you will. Yeah.
Okay,
Please
so
go ahead, feel free.
The first thing is, in terms of the SMEs, is that as SMEs, what we are asking for is an equal playing field. The competition that we have is external investment, FDI. And in terms of creating an equal playing field, is that we want to be able to be as competitive as the FDIs. And the first one that speaks to this is obviously the Investment Act. The Investment Act supports the same thing that she has raised Lupiya, that it only supports the medium enterprises that are high, that can invest $250,000 or $500,000. We know that no local SME is investing that much. We are around $23,000. So we have got, before we start, we are excluded as SMEs. Then you're talking about the tax policy in the country. The FDI sort of gives tax holidays to these large entities that are investing a lot of money, about 500,000. The local SME, immediately they start today, they have to pay 4% turnover tax on a monthly basis. So the first thing is that the 4% tax is the highest single tax there is in this country. Effectively, that's 44%. And you're talking about having to support an SME who is now having to pay the highest tax rate in the country. The third one is that we've got a debt economy, that SMEs in this country are technically now subsidizing the working capital of large organizations. Everything that an SME has to supply, they are required to supply it on debt. We'll pay you in 30 days, we'll pay you in 60 days. And this happens even with the large chain stores. So in essence, the SMEs are providing that debt financing to the large institutions. And then obviously there is also this second aspect, which is the fact that government has also contracted arrears $26.7 billion, which is debt they have taken from the private sector. And then you find that the SMEs are defaulting in their loans, and everybody is just pointing at SMEs that they're defaulting. The bigger picture is the fact that government has not paid $26.7 billion in terms of debt. And those are the key issues. So before we even start to talk about having to support SMEs, can we create an equal playing field that SMEs can compete? And this is creating a conducive business environment which allows them to be able to work. Access to finance is a very, very big issue, but it also starts from the debt situation, that the fact that the SMEs are not being paid on time, it means that they can't invest into the businesses for these businesses to grow, and which makes it very difficult for them to compete. But the specific challenges in terms of access to finance, we know what the challenges are. We have been speaking about these challenges for decades. Collateral, financials, BDS. We should have found a solution as how we have done this. The growth that you've seen in most emerging economies, India, Malaysia, China, they have done it through the SMEs. There are models that can work that are going to support this. They all had the same challenges, but we find it easier to find the excuses than speak to the solution. And then obviously, our partners, ZDA, Ministry of Commerce, I think they need to listen a lot more to the SMEs. There are a lot of times, we must appreciate they have got a lot of effort that they are putting towards having to support the sector. But what you do realize in terms of the economic growth that we have, it clearly shows that what we are doing is insufficient to be able to support this growth. So there's something that is wrong. And that is where these entities need to listen to the SMEs. I think every time I hear them come and speak, they tell us about the very good things they are implementing. They're not telling us what we are saying is not working for us. And I think that is very, very key, without having to go into details. COVID, which is the financing that we're looking at that is supposed to work. So with COVID is that globally, everybody has put stimulus packages that are looking to support the impact of COVID. We've had the medium-term facility. The medium-term facility, unfortunately, this is 1 year down the line. There are countries that have gone into their third stimulus packages now. And we've only got the 10 billion that we have put. If we're really looking to try and support economic recovery to where we are, we needed to be looking at somewhere around 10% of our GDP as a stimulus package that we're putting into the economy. But it's not just about making this pronounced. The funds must actually reach the SMEs that are investing into the economy, and this has not happened. So of the 6.9 that has gone to commercial institutions, what you will find is, obviously, there are no SMEs that are accessing those funds. The one that has gone to the microfinancial institutions, this is speaking to supporting short-term issues. As entities now, we really should have looked at what strategies are we creating for the long term. Because we need obviously to be able to speak to investing in the short term, and then that when we finish with the short term, we have created a long term. Otherwise, we are short term indefinitely. And this is an issue that we should be able to access funds that are speaking to long-term finance, and microfinance does not support long-term because of that beautiful interest that they have. Okay, the interest rate is where I learned a lesson that this is when it comes to where interest rate is actually set in on a monthly basis, not annual. Okay, so I think those are the key aspects. But also access to information is that information is so difficult to come by for the SMEs in terms of where will I get the information about the medium-term facility? Where will I get the information about what services ZDA is providing in terms of the programs that are available to access this? I think we need to centralize this to be able to support the SMEs.
Right. Thank you so much, Trevor. You can hand over the mic to Haggai. I think you talk about very simple and practical solutions that can answer some of the economic challenges that we are grappling with. And you also mentioned very important metrics, I think, that we need to pay attention to. I hope there are some MFIs in here and they were listening. So thank you so much, Trevor. It's always good to get your insights. Haggai, Maybe, I hope you can hear me, no problem. Yeah, so we know that the impact investing market is growing rather at a rapid pace the world over. Things are looking up and looking good for Southern Africa as well. And we're hoping that we can continue on this upward trajectory. So I'd like to hear more from National Advisory Board for Impact Investing, which is bringing together different or key players within impact investing to make such funds more available. So can you tell us a little bit more and why it's important to begin rapidly moving impact funds within the country? What are some of the opportunities that you're seeing?
Thank you, Nambla. Yeah, so I think the case for impact investment is that there is huge opportunities for businesses and investors alike to make financial return, but at the same time address some of the key challenges that we're having. And I know there are a lot of stories around when you say everyone who is investing in developing countries doing impact investment. But I think impact investment is very very unique approach, because it's not only targeting the financial return, but has got this social or environmental outcome which is seeking to achieve, but it's also measurable. And as they say, you only get what you measure. So I think it's important that these things are aligned, is mainstreamed in our activities, and that's why much of the work what National Advisory Board is doing is to really ensure that how do we then work with stakeholders, not only businesses, which is on the demand side, but as I said, holistically, because there's what we call ecosystem, which is just the interconnectedness of various players who are working together to really push finance as well as growth for businesses and also other sectors. So we're working with various sectors or specifically players such as the suppliers, and these are people or organizations which provide finance. Not only government, but we're talking about development finance institutions, we're talking about commercial banks and non-bank financial institutions, which are generally common in Zambia, but we're also trying to see how can we promote innovative finance. I think which is very key. We've seen that, things have not worked when it comes to financing for banks. Obviously some traction going on with microfinance institutions, but again, the asset base is quite very small. But the very impact investment as a tool has got a lot of innovative means or innovative finance which are going on, which we can promote in order for SMEs to access to grow. But also, it speaks to our work with intermediaries. I think they are very critical, because finance doesn't just go from someone who has got finance to a business. There's a middleman in place here who's kind of coordinating, working with both parties, and I think the work that we've been doing has been quite very impressive. But also trying to see how can we promote the capacities of financial intermediaries locally, and we've been having discussion through our global affiliation of the Global Sales Group for Impact Investment. We get these conversations that there's willingness for some of the GFIs to invest in Zambia, but they can't invest directly in business, but they would rather invest in local funds, which is the intermediaries. But when it comes to experience and skills, it's really not up to speed with what they're looking for. Partly because it's very difficult even for local funds or intermediaries to raise capital locally to fund the businesses. And a few things that we've been speaking to is pension funds. How can pension funds get involved in this space? I think that would one of the largest assets in Zambia, and also globally when we look at the structure of pension funds. But their investment is kind of very limited to government securities and few listed companies on Lusaka Stock Exchange. And there's this kind of lack of awareness generally when it speaks to information asymmetry about existing asset classes which they can invest in, or be it investable assets or right appropriate vehicles in which they can channel these funds. So there's a kind of work that we're doing, conversation that we're doing, how can we make these channels be available. Market builders, which we call enablers, are these people like audit firms, accounting firms, I think that, you see, everyone has got a role to play in this, and I think there's an opportunity also for them to get involved in terms of how can they ensure they support, and most of the businesses that we talk to, they say they can't pay an audit firm like a KPMG to do their financials, because it's expensive. So how do they centralize and make sure that these services are being accessible to such kind of market players? Business side is also one key area that we're working around, trying to see how within business side, I think most of it, I'm not an expert in that, and I know Everett and Trevor has really addressed that well, but we're trying to see how can we promote a platform in which these, and for us, when we talk about business, we're really looking at impact-focused business, so social enterprises, which really are speaking to addressing one of the key areas of the National Sustainable Development Goals, and most of them are aligned also to the 7th National Development Plan, which is our country's agenda and plan. And so our work is really now anchored in terms of how do we coordinate, provide a platform for all these kind of players to work together. And we're also working with government, and I think with Kilo, we know that what is there available is not sufficient, but we're trying to see how can we improve policy and regulation, particularly when it gets to impact investment, because I mean at the moment there's no regulatory policy on impact investment, which I can very understand the process is very new, but also how do we ensure that few things that are affecting the intermediaries, for example, the issues of other forms of finance that we're talking about, not only commercial banks, but also not only commercial banks and non-bank financial institutions, but other forms of finance like private equity and venture capital. How can regulation be better reformulated to ensure that there is increased flow of this source of capital? There are other regulatory requirements which can enhance access to finance for SMEs, like regulation around crowdfunding platforms, which we don't have yet, and I think that also allows for a more, because of lowest cost and easier of SMEs to access finance, and also in a bit more smaller ticket sizes. So these are kind of, in a nutshell, a few things that we've been supporting and initiating to our working on. Thanks.
Great. Thank you, Haggai. That's definitely a very positive outlook, but we're hoping also that realistically we can be able to attract investment within nature-based sectors, which I think is very important, especially considering the COVID context. So well done on the great work that NABII is doing in pushing this forward. In the interest of time, Phyllis is on my back, saying we're running out of time. So I'm briefly going to go back to Mr. Musentekwa to tell us a bit about the Africa Continental Free Trade Area, which has just been ratified recently by the President of the Republic of Zambia. And we know that ZDA is in the forefront in ensuring that we bring this down to the level that promotes inclusion and translates into very meaningful value for SMEs and small and growing businesses. So what does this mean for the country? There are a lot of questions in terms of what is it, what does it mean, how do we benefit? So specifically with ZDA, how are you putting this out to ensure that we have the full information on how we can all benefit?
Thank you very much, moderator. I think before I come to the Africa Continental Free Trade Area, let me look at a few things that has come out, which needs to be maybe clarified. Yeah, I want to, at this time, maybe to bring out the mandate of the ZDA so that we understand what ZDA is, what it does, so that we know exactly who we are targeting and what sort of services that we are offering here. So the Zambia Development Agency, this is a statutory body under the Ministry of Commerce, Trade and Industry, like it was said by Mr. Kamayoyo. Yeah, then the mandate is to facilitate investment, trade, and enterprise development. So there are three aspects or three pillars that are coming out. There is investment, trade, and enterprise development. So now if we look at these three pillars, the investment aspect looks at the larger part of the investors or the businesses. We look at the FDIs, the foreign direct investments. We look at the large companies, the local investors within Zambia. Yeah. Then when we come to the trade, this we handle it through the export, promotion and development division or pillar. Yeah. We look at the SMEs who are exporting. We also look at the larger companies who are exporting. And what are these MSMEs exporting? This is basically non-traditional exports. That is all other exports other than copper and cobalt, because these are the traditional exports. And of course, no arms involved in the non-traditionals. Yeah, that's it. Then we come to the enterprise development. This is where we cover the micro, small, and medium enterprises. And if you look at the micro, medium enterprises, there is a definition that defines who a micro enterprise is, who a small enterprise is, and who a medium enterprise is. Now, to the contrary, you say that we cover the medium enterprises. We don't, actually, those are the ones that are skipped. So we are covering the micro and small. Then we skip the medium, gets into the large. So if you're saying that you're covering this, then I don't know which definitions that you are using for the micro, small, and medium enterprises. The definition actually is enshrined in the MSME development policy, which at the moment is being reviewed. Okay? And it has three yardsticks that it uses to define the MSMEs. One, we use the investment in plant and machinery, excluding land. Then two, we use the annual turnover. And then three, we use the level of employment, the number of people that you have employed. So if one has to be classified as a micro, then should have invested up to 80,000 kwacha in terms of investments. Then the annual turnover going up to about 150,000 kwacha. Then employing between 1 and 10. That one is micro. And most of the MSMEs that we are dealing with, you find them in that bracket. Then we also now look at the other bracket, which is the small. The small will have the investment in plant and machinery ranging from about 150 to about 200, thereabout. Yeah, 250. Yeah. Then the annual turnover will go up to 300,000 kwacha. Then the number of people employed should be in the range of 11 to 50. That is a small enterprise. Then if you look now at the medium of the investment starting from about 500 going upwards, then the annual turnover would actually go up to about 800,000 kwacha. Then the number of people that have been employed are actually from 51 to 100. Yeah. So the ones that are covering, it may be that you have gone beyond these brackets. That's why you feel that you are not being covered. But otherwise, if you are within these brackets, then you are actually the people that we are covering. Okay? Then there was another issue that came concerning the
Africa Continental Free Trade Area.
okay, now it's a continental free
Oh, it's the other way around. is it the other way around? I always struggle. Is it Africa Continental Free Trade Area or Continental? Who can get that right?
Africa
Continental
Free Trade
There
Area.
you go. Okay.
Yes. Yeah, actually, I'll say a bit about it, and I'm sure Mr. Kamayoyo will also be able to come in because these are the policy makers, and they are the ones that are at the center of the entire policy that has come out here. So if you look at the Africa Continental Free Trade Area, we are looking at coming into the continent, opening up the borders so that goods can be freely traded within the entire Africa. Okay, so you can now be able to receive items coming from Nigeria, from Angola, coming to sell in Zambia if they have seen the opportunity in Zambia. Okay, then Zambians can also be able to sell their products and services outside Zambia. You can go to Namibia, go to Nigeria, go to Algeria, and all those other countries. Meaning that you need, to ensure that you have prepared yourself for you to venture into this. It's not only, the free movements of the goods, it's also the free movements of labor. So labor will also be able to move from all these other countries into Zambia, as well as from Zambia into all these other nations. Okay. Now, what is it that, in terms of the MSMEs, what is it that they are supposed to benefit from the same? Okay. We are actually trying to position them so that they don't fear what is coming up, but their minds, they should have a mindset change to embrace what is coming and to look at the opportunities which are there for them to take advantage of and be able to trade. They can trade within Zambia, they can also trade outside Zambia. If you look at the way the structure of our market is, Zambia is a small market, but we have a bigger market within the region, okay? And Congo is one market that we failed actually to satisfy. Angola is another market that actually are importing items that can come from Zambia. They import chicken, vegetables, coming all the way from Brazil. And we're just in the neighboring, space where we should be able to fill in those gaps. Yeah. So for ZDA, what we have done is that we've come up with a strategy to reach out initially to the neighboring countries. And the strategy or the plan, we're calling it the N8+1. That is the 8 neighboring countries. That is our starting point. The +1, this one is South Africa. Okay? So we want to look at how best we can position our MSMEs together with the large companies to begin in the region. And thereafter, they should now go within the entire Africa so that they are able to participate. Because if they are able to feature within the region, then even the entire, Africa, even going international, they can do it. Yeah. So we have some programs that we are trying to run. For example, for the MSMEs, we are bringing them together and then take them through the export readiness. What does it take for you to export? How do you export your products? Are you going to export these products in the same form that they are within the domestic market? So those are some of the issues that we are bringing out to ensure that we prepare them, psychologically, we prepare their minds for them to be able to jump onto the bandwagon and be able to do business. Because we are also trying to look at in terms of sensitizing. There's a buy, Zambia products and also that. All those are actually ways that we are trying to prepare the people also, because we need to promote our own products. If we cannot consume our own products, and these are the products coming from companies that is supposed to, contribute to our GDP. These are the companies that are trying now to look at, bring out all necessary items that will support the economy of this nation. Then we just jump on to support other products. Then we are supporting the development of other nations other than ours. So the first thing that we need to do is to look into ourselves. Are there enough products that we can be able to produce? Yes. Are we producing them? Yes. How are we producing them? That is the other aspect that we are running. We are running, some programs in terms of product development, where we are looking at how best they should produce competitive products. Should there be any product coming from outside, it should be able to compete with ours, and then we should be able to go for ours because it will be slightly competitive in terms of price compared to the one that will come from outside, which might even be expensive than ours. Yeah, so maybe I may end up there. Sakamayo might pick it up from the policy point of view. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Gabriel. Maybe just to mention something regarding the Africa Continental Free Trade Area. Yes, he has every outlined some of the potential fears around it, but let me just say theoretically what it implies to the SMEs. You may wish to know that Zambia is part of or is a signatory to the COMESA and SADC. These two regional economic communities provides reciprocal trade preferences for all member states, implying that when you open your borders, the extent of your opening is similar or the same as the other trading partner. Now, Zambia is not just a member of the COMESA and SADC, it's also a signatory to the AGOA, Africa Growth Opportunity Act, where there's unilateral preferences given to the Zambians or Zambian economy. But to the extent to which we are utilizing that preference, I think it's something we can all discuss, and because it borders on supply capacities and many other issues, logistical issues. But an issue of concern to us is the proximity of regional economic community where we are, which is COMESA and SADC. To what extent has SMEs effectively utilized this opportunity? Before we even start talking about the African Continental Free Trade Area, because theoretically, the African Continental Free Trade Area, it means that it widens the market. Now, when it widens, remember I mentioned it's reciprocal. It means it has also widened to your opponents. They are also looking at you as an opportunity. Therefore, on the platform, it's competition. So how ready are you? That's the question that will come. So the Ministry of Commerce has been active, participating in negotiations. As you have said, we have deposited the instrument for to be part of the Africa Continental Free Trade Area, meaning we are now involved. We have joined the other 55 countries. We have to be exposed to the same preferential trade area. Now you know what it means, the stages of free trade area. Where we are is at free trade area. It means within the entire African continent, we subject each other to the same conditions. But any country or any trading parts outside the African continent, each country can decide what sort of terms are you going to trade with. So these are some of the issues, but now, when you are negotiating this agreement, there's what we call consideration of sensitive list industry or product. So it's at that point that you identify which sectors or which categories in an industry can we shield not to be exposed as early to this environment, which is the continental free trade area. So there are some sectors we have considered for protection over a certain period of time. So that's why I see this platform, and thank you to the organizers, that it helps us also to share some of the issues and also to try to demystify some of the fears and also to try to explain what sort of adjustment measures have been put in place in terms of how we adjust. But moderator, let me just answer one concern that was raised by Evelyn, where the issue of registration, where it took more than they had expected, and also maybe the fees were somehow not reasonable in their consideration. I must say that, okay, I'm getting for the first time, especially with respect to the time, because I think in the last 4 years, under the ease of doing business index study or reports, PACRA is one of the institutions that have been cited that it has been performing very well because of the adoption or embracing of automation or e-governance. So I think maybe it's something we can look at. It shouldn't have been that long as you were exposed to. With respect to the fees, I think these are some of the issues we should be debating, because in an economy there are two types of barriers. There are structural barriers and then there are behavioral barriers. Structural barriers are more inclined to how the government is interacting with the private sector. And this includes entry barriers into the business. For instance, a structural barrier can be they just put some kind of inspection requirements and you are told you need to pay this and that. Before you register your company, you need to pay this amount, which she has already highlighted. So if it's too high, then it becomes the deterrent for an entrepreneur to enter into the market. Behavioral barriers are those barriers that are introduced by among yourselves as players. It's horizontal interaction. Your competitor trying to block, or through vertical interaction where you expect that this big company produces this product, and that's the product that you rely as an input in your production. And that same company as well, on the downstream market, is your competitor. Then they decide not to supply you an essential doctrine. So that's why the competition and consumer protection comes in to ensure that if it's an essential commodity or input, it should be given to everyone, or permission should be allowed unless you can't just meet the price. So, moderator, I think those are some of the things I would like to mention, but also to echo that as government, we prioritize the importance of the SMEs because we view it as an engine for growth of this economy, and also it's an important aspect of self-empowerment and self-employment. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Kamoyo, for highlighting those very important issues. And I think, like Gabriel mentioned, it's important to look at how we can boost local, capacity and industrialization in order for us to take advantage of the opportunities, market opportunities within the region. So thank you for highlighting from government side how you're making this possible. So in the interest of time, I will pass on the mic to Phyllis to take questions from the audience. And when we come back, I think we'll wrap up with just very quick concluding thoughts.
Okay. Thank you so much, Nabula. I think those were very insightful, conversations, and I'm very sure we'll be having more of these and talking going forward. So, questions? There's a hand, Sarah. So if you can just introduce yourself quickly. So you mentioned whether you're SME supporting hub or representing them, any government institution, where you're from, and then quickly ask your question. We need to really manage time. So the questions should be brief and to the point. Thank you, and you can direct it to the person you want to answer. Thank you.
My name is Lupiya. I'm from Palombo Trade Marketing Limited. We are situated in Kongwa, and it's about 40 kilometers away from the town. I've got questions actually for every one of you, but I'm being told, there's a time aspect, the most pressing. Yeah, my question really is to the government, especially that we have the PS presentation in this meeting. I'm one of the companies that has benefited from the World Bank grant with a threshold of 140,000 US dollars. And there's the demand of us coming up with a percentage to ensure that we access that money. And we have assets, a lot of assets. We are seated with the 100,000 solar grid. That's a remote one. It's about 40 kilowatts, which can be used by either governments to buy off our power from our generation. But I think there is a disconnect with government in the way you operate, because you've just been saying about you guys doing a policy review. So I don't even know if in your gathering of formulating those policies you even include the SMEs, because I think it's very vital that you include us as you are formulating. Because it's not about government, you have us as players that will enable government to push through good policies for its people. Right now, there's a big problem where the international guys that have come in Zambia, they are doing what you call, they are working together in ensuring that the prices of commodity go high. You can even see what is happening to the cooking oil. There's no justification whatsoever that cooking oil should be selling for that amount, because the materials that they're using was bought last year. So I think also government is sleeping. I don't know who's governing, because I think the authorities in government are sleeping, or either you are using corruption to enable these players, get away with very wrong things that they are doing, and leaving the players who are, who have the heart of the country and the people of Zambia. The question is, do you have a package, or how do you help entrepreneurs who have received grants and they can't access from the Bank of Zambia? Because the Bank of Zambia also, they're a major country. Sorry, I just have to say something. So sorry, please, I think this is very important. Where they have this stimulus package, and there's monies that are coming in the country. And sorry to say, they'll give the money to commercial banks, and they know that commercial banks will not even give us that money. We have Zakawe in this meeting, who are, they have a very huge photo of how they keep the entrepreneurs. They know our needs, they know we are found. And I think some of that money should be given to Zakawe, and Zakawe as a structure where they are able to, fund the entrepreneurs in Zambia so that we can grow at a systematic rate. I'm very sad with what is happening in the country, because now we have foreigners coming in and really taking advantage of what is happening, the gaps that are in this country in terms of governance.
Thank you so much. So I think that can go to Minister of Commerce and maybe ZDA.
Bank of Zambia.
And Bank of Zambia. So we'll start with Bank of Zambia. Sure.
Okay, thank you for that question. Is that Sarah? Yeah. Okay, so I think I would like to correct the perception. I would not want our clients or population to feel that the bank is giving the stimulus package to commercial banks with the knowledge that they will not give it out to others. As a prerequisite for the commercial banks to actually access the monies that the stimulus package has, they have to provide a framework in which they are supporting the key sectors that need to be developed. And after the money has been accessed, the Bank of Zambia has given a timeline in which we will go back and assess the performance of these monies. So effectively, these monies are supposed to reach people. They're supposed to reach the clients. Now, in terms of the commercial banks, if Zafawip has an account with any commercial bank, really I don't see why we should not have that awareness. I think I spoke about it, that there seems to be a gap, an information gap from both players, the commercial banks as well as the reaching the clients, in that there is this facility available. Now, that is something I think we have been realized and have engaged in, and I think the commercial banks have actually committed to perform better, because we have given the time frame and we expect the money to be used. So that is one aspect, and I hope going forward that maybe that will help with the understanding. The funds that we have to be, I think you noted from even Impact, Impact Zambia, the intermediary has to be there for us to give the funds to. We have to give the funds to an intermediary that has, all the required, infrastructure in place to monitor the clients, to make an assessment of the client, and to be able to get repayment. So the Bank of Zambia has no capacity to directly engage with the population per se. So this is why we are using the commercial banks and the non-bank financial institutions as the intermediary to which the funds should reach the people.
Thank you so much. Over to MCTI. Would you like to respond, or maybe ZDA? In line with what Sarah brought out.
ZDA can start.
Regarding investment coming in and taking over the show.
Okay, I just got a few points that maybe I can look at. You said that you're a beneficiary of the funds from the World Bank, okay? And that is in the tune of about, how many US dollars? 160? 140, yes. Yeah, so if you have such funds, they first put it into good use, and then look at other gaps that will come later on for you to look at which other financing institution that you will be able to require. Okay, that is what I can say on that part. But then on the other aspect you mentioned concerning these companies that are coming, and as they come, they are coming to push up the prices. Yeah. You need to look at your structure in terms of, because at times, what from the interaction that we have had with most of the MSMEs, there is a gap in terms of how they normally do the costing of their products. So that aspect actually is one of those things that we are trying to address, so that when other players are coming on board, they should know what constitutes the costing of their products and what also comes up in terms of the markup. There are other companies that actually would use, because of they're quite big and they're able to bring bulky items, raw materials at a cheaper rate, that would translate into their products, okay, becoming cheaper. But then if we get items in small quantities at higher prices, that will also translate into the expensiveness of our product. So the issue in terms of building capacity among the MSMEs to look into the costing structure, costing and pricing structure, is actually key to knowing exactly what it is that they need to put up. Yeah. But otherwise, there are certain aspects that are done, exactly what you said, which, well, that one, Mr. Kamayo can be able to talk about it, allowing the items that are coming. Because there was one issue that also I came across where, those that are producing, pastes, tomato sauce, and the like. Yeah, there are some companies that will bring those pastes from outside in drums, and they're not able to use our own tomatoes and the other ingredients that will come into that. So as a result, the prices goes down, and those that are doing it in Zambia, the prices go up. But it's a policy issue, which us as implementers, we normally push it to our policy, our motherboard, which is the Ministry of Commerce, and those are the ones that normally will handle such issues as at that stage. Yeah, so you are actually quite blessed to have Mr. Kamayo here, who is coming from Ministry of Commerce. I'm sure he'll be able to do it.
Yeah, thank you very much. Thank you for the, I should say, partially thank you for the contribution, because there was a sentiment again, and I wanted to mention that colleagues and ladies and gentlemen, these platforms are very important for various reasons, but key to them, they are meant for information exchange and knowledge sharing and business ideas discoveries. Essentially, they are not formulated to be exploited for an opportunity to express some allegations that may be difficult to substantiate. So therefore, we are all, I think, charged to be able to assert ourselves in a manner that we know that the information we are transmitting is very credible. So besides that, let me just maybe mention to comment on the issue of matchmaking issues. I think also it's an issue of information asymmetry, as my colleague said, and we need to interact with that. It's good we have already benefited something, and I think on the process in your design of your business plan or project, there's an aspect of monitoring and evaluation. So some of these issues can be addressed. But the World Bank project, I don't know which one, but I know within the ministry we have a project which is supported by the World Bank for a tune of about 50 million. It's going up to about 5 years. It has taken, I think, 3 years plus. I'm sure that could be the same project. The issues we are raising are more centered around business development services and also aftercare services. When someone has already accessed the support, what sort of help now do they need to ensure that they live up to the expectation of the objective of the business idea that they have? With respect to importation, the mission of certain products that maybe you and many others might have come across, and they are injuring an industry or a particular category of players in a specified industry. There are two things that can be looked at, and I first discard the other allegation of corruption because it's difficult to say, but I must say that economic policy is for everyone. Both the state, the government, and also the players who are involved, and even consumers should be able to see. Because if products are being smuggled, there's a risk that either they may not be fit to be traded, or they may be injuring other players who are following the laid down procedures or conduct of doing business. So that's why the economic policy should be the responsibility of everyone. You and the whistleblower as issue, if you see the to also come and alert, because policing is concerted effort. So don't just see and just keep quiet, that I'll wait. That's a rover on first floor. When the ministry comes or the government comes, then I'm going now to shoot. Yeah, because now, then you lessen the relevance of the report, because it will be perceived like it's artistical or Zuba, what you call it, drama, and DSTV. So it may not be accorded to the required importance. Yeah, so it's good you have raised it in the edible oils. There are many issues taking place there. The ministry is aware, and we are doing it. We are investigating. We have been surveying. Why is it that there's a market disconnect? Some farmers are saying we have produced more soybeans. On the market, the crushers are saying there's a low supply of soybeans. So you can see that the value chain, there's a delinkage somewhere, somehow, somewhere. Either it's voluntary or involuntary linkage. So we need to interrogate that. Then you hear that someone who is crushing or is producing oil is importing crude oil. Then again, you have upstream players who are claiming they have bumper harvest. So you see this disconnection. So as we investigate, we establish the intention of why someone should not go for the easiest, because less cost efficiency is important. So I think those are my comments, and we wish we can have more of these discussions so that we help government. We are at your service. We are at your service. We are there to protect your businesses. Thank you.
So thank you so much for demystifying some of those myths. It's very important to have this platform, and also just to emphasize that the goal for having a platform like this is to enhance collaboration and ensure that there's free information flow about what is happening from both the private sector, the public sector, and it's important that we encourage that mutual respect and engagement. So thank you so much, and we are happy to move forward with that.
Okay, we'll take our second question, but I'm just trying to manage time. So over to you. So let's be brief and to the point.
It's hard to be. Amazing conversations. I think for me, what comes to mind firstly is that I think as Zambians, and this is coming from a very, very passionate position, I think we need to be serious about where we want to take the country. For a long time, there has been a lot of blame pushing to this person and that person for what's not happening. Listening to ZDA say the gaps and the opportunities for us to export to neighboring countries, Congo, Angola, Zambia itself, right, begs me to wonder why Zambians are not rising to the occasion. And the first thing I'm going to ask from ZDA and Ministry of Commerce, what sort of incentive packages are we putting in place, especially for the opportunists that have land, that can produce for the immediate, harvest and exportation that goes into this agenda for Zambia to be able to sustain the neighboring countries for us to export and gain revenue. What can we put in place without considering the whole process of policy, development? We should wait 5 years for this structure to be in place. We have a lot of young people right now, the youth, that are hungry to produce something, and all they need is a 6-month plan to say, give me potatoes, this is the grade, we'll guide you, we'll support you, we'll produce and export. We need short-term, impact and goals that can be achieved while we're building the long-term ones. The other thing, and this is to you, Kelvin, my dear friend, government needs to market, advertise, publicize the opportunities that are being created for the people. A lot of people wonder what government is doing, not because government is not working. It's because there isn't enough sensitization about what's available to the people. What are the requirements? What are the processes? Who are you looking for? That way, as partners, Bongo Hive, WEAC, JHub, we can easily package those people into categories of the kind of people you're looking for. We've got the startups, we've got the MSMEs, we've got the SMEs. Where do you fall? How can we push you then to government for you to benefit, from all the opportunities that are being lined up? I think the mismatch or the misplaced priorities are coming about because there isn't enough information that is going around to people for people to understand what is available and how they need to structure themselves. The other thing that I don't know if it's just semantics and Vebling, startups. Startups feed into your SME, MSME structure. Where do they fall when we come to policy, development? How are you terming them? Are we termed as MSMEs? And if we are, do we have structural, guidelines that can support the growth of startups? My organization works with startups, early stage startups, right? We don't have a policy to support that. And that's why when startups come or go to institutions, they're regarded irrelevant until they get to a point where now the terminology sounds perfect. Semantics again. How can we ensure that we create a pool of young people that are coming up, that come in and fit into these structures that you already have in place? Therefore, we can now term and be able to note that opportunities are really there. The startups are falling in a category where for us it's very difficult because now we're investing in these startups by creating innovative ideas, and it's a stress that we are bearing every single day. How can government deliberately, I know Tanzania has a startup policy, how can we start to put together a startup policy that fits into the MSME policy? I don't know if it's the same thing, or we can create one that actually fits our agenda. Because we are contributing, we are working. I don't know if you've noticed, we are working. So we want to know that we are relevant to your agendas and that we have been catered for in your policy, development. And also when you identify opportunities globally, make sure you have the startup at the back of your mind, not even at the back, at the front of your mind, that these people are coming in and they're going to fit into your MSME or SME agenda, and they're the ones who are going to drive this economy. There's a startup. She's doing amazing work already, right? She started as a startup. So what are you doing to ensure that the startups are being helped to get to a level where now it satisfies your KPIs?
You introduced yourself.
Oh, sorry, I'm Mara. I'm Mara Chelo. I am the founder and CEO for Jacaranda Hub. And we're doing amazing work.
Thank you, Mara.
The issues that are being raised are very cardinal in the fact that as a country, the bigger portion of the SMEs that you're talking about, they are startups, and they need to be able to grow to a position where they can reach competitive success and where they become attractive to the financial institutions for them to be able to borrow. We know that as a startup, one of the things, we all talk about the access to finance. One of the things that the financial institution will be asking for will be financial records. And the financial records, they'll be saying they need to be audited for them to be validated. But we all know that an SME cannot afford this. And these are the structures that we need to be able to create so that we're able to create a baseline for where we can grow our entrepreneurs. Otherwise, they're starting from a position of being disadvantaged. Thank you.
No, it's not really a comment, but just to, I think the issues that she's outlined are very, very critical, and I think the major theme I would hear from the question of our leadership is the whole issue of information asymmetry. I think that's very, very huge. There's definitely an opportunity to collaborate with both the private sector as well as government to kind of find mechanisms in which we can kind of improve information flow from both from the supply side, but also from the demand side. And I think we are doing something, doing something in that area. We hope we can work with the relevant stakeholders to improve this kind of information. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mara, for bringing that up. I think it's a very important aspect of the growing or SME sector. There's clearly a gap. They don't seem to be covered in the policies. So I think ZDA and the Ministry of Finance, I'm sure will be looking into how they can address that situation. For the banking financial sector issues, we have tried to engage. I think the FSPs are very aware, and they're looking into product developments of that are simple products that are more aligned to SMEs in terms of reducing this KYC requirements, so that you don't necessarily have to have all this documentation and packaging, so that I think pilots are in place with certain partnerships to actually go into the micro startups, I should say, who have limited 0 to 5, 5 to 10 workforce, so that we can actually come out at the end of the day with recommendations and packages that will support from the financing side the players who are startup side.
Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you very much. I think the issues raised are quite important, and we cannot overlook them, actually. When you talk about the startups, you know, for you to get to wherever you want, there is a first step that you take. And startups, you take them as first step into entrepreneurship and into running businesses. So, in terms of how we look at them, we look at them as important, entities that needs to be supported. And if you look at the MSME development policy, the MSME development policy does not just say startups. When it starts from micro, those fall under the micro, okay? Because they are just starting up and they are at the base, okay? So in terms of support, we just need to see how we collaborate and see the best way to synergize in terms of how we support them. Otherwise, that is an important, group to look at. Then you had mentioned in terms of information on the regional markets and all those. Yeah, what it is that there is actually information gaps that exist, and as a result, you see that there are certain, enterprises that will access information because they are able, to reach out. Others who do not usually reach out, it becomes a bit difficult for them to get on board. So we have had a number of times when we have taken the MSMEs, into Congo for them to go and test out the market, which is it. The last time that we took them before the COVID, we experienced that most of them, okay, they were about 10 who actually got, I think about the confirmed orders of about I think that should have been about 3 million US dollars, okay? And that was a small number who went into that. So when they came back, they were now, looking at how best to satisfy that market, okay? So if the information is not, doesn't reach you, you may not know that there are such things that are open up. Yeah, we normally would use, maybe we need to improve in terms of how we reach out to most of you so that you are able to get that information. And as a result, you will be able to participate in most of these events that comes up. We will reach out. I know that this is Mala, then Mrs. Jacarande, how is it?
We are happy to share a campaign strategy for you.
Okay,
We'll definitely work and get the information out there. So
Okay, thank you very much. Okay.
Okay, thank you very much. I think the sensitization issue, we recognize it. Maybe it's one of the aspects which we are not doing very much, but I think it's a shared blame. Also, the private sector themselves. In the past, I think 15 years ago, when we were implementing the 5th National Development Plan, we had sector advisory groups, and we used to have like exactly it's for bigger ones. Then I think prior to ZAM, that ZAM has now come on board. Then we used to have Zambia Association of Chamber of Commerce, small and medium Chamber of Commerce. Zambia, yes. In the last 24 months, I've not heard like even in the papers like something being said by the board, by the institution. But I think there's need to revive such platforms to see how best you can have a coordinated voice, coordinated strong voice. Also, so even on the private sector, in fact, the weaknesses are classified in two fronts. There's intra weakness on both public and private. Then there's inter public and private weakness in terms of interaction. So this issue, I think it's well known. But for me, I would want in the next 12 months, we start talking about youth millionaires, youth Zambian millionaires, who are emerging, startups, SMEs, because they are the ones who hold the growth and stability of the economy. So with respect to your incentives, I think ZDA, as everybody said, Zambia and Congo, we recently signed an MOU last year with respect to permitting certain products for formal trade. At the moment, there's informal trade. You know, when you go to Kasumbalesa, there you said, some of your colleagues are cashing in, but it's rare that you see someone coming and I'm cashing in, even with this environment. So oftentimes, we don't come to tell a success story when we know that success has some kind of a story again which cannot be told. So we need to share this information. Then the SME policies under review, they are not yet like finalized. So from here, in our report, I know I'm not alone, there are some of my colleagues have come. In our report, we recommend that we write to invite you, the startups, so that you are able to be part of the process. There are needs that you want to be in the policy, because it's from there that it cascades even to whoever you want to seek support with your law. Is it in the national document? It's not there, but how come you claim this is an industry-wide or a category-wide? So we'll be able to invite you for that. And also the organizers probably consider this as a standing platform. In a year, you can have a quarterly platform like this, where we can share and bring other institutions beyond the Ministry of Commerce. I know Ministry of Commerce is cross-cutting the mandate. And that's why you have seen the cooperative department moved from agriculture to Ministry of Commerce, realizing that there's trade in goods, there's trade in services. Trade in services has different modes of trading. Natural persons is just one of them. There is also consumption abroad, cross-border. So these are issues we can discuss if we have platforms like this. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Do we have another question? One, two questions.
No, sir.
Thank you so much. I know we have one entrepreneur, but I'll let Safaway say something, then we'll allow also an entrepreneur to ask a pressing question. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And I really don't have a specific question to ask. I wanted to just start by congratulating you, Madam CEO, for putting up this kind of platform. I think the conversations have been so insightful. There's so much information that even us seated here would not have had if we didn't come to this platform here today. And that brings me to the comment that I want to make, is that we seem to think that Zambia is actually Lusaka. And so even as we are privileged to have this kind of information from the ministry, from the Bank of Zambia, from the National Advisory, there are millions of Zambians out there who are doing amazing work, but they don't have the privilege to get this information. And I listened very carefully to the presentation, to the comments from ZDA, where they are telling us the amazing work that they're doing in export readiness and so on. But I think all of us realize that they're very thin on the ground. They are actually not in touch with the people out there. And so there are entities out there that we really need to foster strong partnerships. Mr. Msentekwa said that before, when they used to go to Congo, they used to get the information out there. And that's true. They used to go through the associations. They would send us notice that they're taking a trade mission to this place and could be sent. Now ZDA has a list of people that they contact directly. So they've cut out that partnership, which was so key to allowing a lot more people to participate in these activities for the benefit of more people. And so I think we need to revisit some of the things that we used to do before. I think we have a tendency of pushing us away the stepping stone that we used. Those sector advisory groups, we used to sit on those. We used to sit on those in the Ministry of Commerce, in the Ministry of Gender, and other ministries. And then one day, we woke up and they were no longer there. We find also that some of the government departments tend to go into implementation more than policy making, and then the relevance of the intermediary organizations is taken away. And I think we need to work on that, and that's one thing that we've started to do already with the Ministry of Commerce. We are working on strengthening the women entrepreneur associations so that they can get back into that position where they are able to relay relevant information to their members right across the country. Thank you very much, and congratulations again, Brian, for this fund.
Thank you so much. Talking about the crossword, I'll let Mr. Muda also say something. I know the organization is working closely with outside Lusaka. Your comments, sir? And then we'll take a question from Zindaba, then I'll take it back to the panel.
Thank you, Phyllis. It's really not our show as if we more work with the central bank in the financial sector, trying to support different financial players to take their financial services to rural areas. So we fall under the Ministry of Finance, and at least we are glad to report that in terms of the structures, we still have the structures where we engage with the different financial service players to be able to be part of the policy making. Whatever we do, we have national policy on financial education. We have policies around increasing financial inclusion in the country. So I represent an institution called RUPA, the Rural Finance Expansion Program, and our role is to support various players to take financial services to rural areas. And yes, I think there's a lot of work that we need to do. Siding with my colleagues from government, we need to really engage with the actual players on the ground. There's a lot of implementation that must happen of the different policies that we have. We need to marry the business development services with actual finance happening. We need to carry along the players that are just beginning, the startups, by having different sort of entry, if you want, policies or structures. For example, in the financial sector, we know that it's impossible to have financial service providers situated in every corner of this country, every district, especially now more districts. So, as Brenda said, we are supporting digital financial services. We know that everybody has a phone now, so you should be able to apply for a loan to Lupiya using your phone and be able to get your loan approved within a minute or two, and be able to go to the nearest in chamber and get your loan without having to walk a long distance. We also must, let me just talk about time. Our colleagues, the entrepreneurs, most of their businesses are 1 man, 1 woman, 2 or 3 people. So, for example, when they are here, the shop is closed, so they are losing business. So we as policymakers, we must learn to respect that time that they give us. So if you say 1 hour, it should be 1 hour or 2 hours. Because the shop is closed, they are losing money. When you invite them next time, they will not come. This I've learned from going to rural areas where I work with businesses, what are called savings groups. They meet for 1 hour. In 1 hour, they would have saved 100,000 kwacha. People would have borrowed money to go back and do their businesses. Like most of us, you don't want to go to the bank and spend the whole day. You want to go there, or not even go there if you can. Just withdraw your money and get on with your business. Yeah, so I think a bit of work to be done. We need to make sure that we address that part of the population which you keep saying is important. The 96% that my brother talked about, 93%. Yeah, 93%. But our focus is on 7%. Yeah, believe me, you were in SMEs finance. We talk about this I talk about this, the big one. There's no one that actually contributing to a lot of employment. We don't pay that much attention to. Until we do that, we'll not turn around because we have to produce ourselves as Zambians through the small entrepreneurs.
Thank you so much. So also, I just wanted to add on, maybe as you round up, you could let us know who a startup is in Zambia. Just a brief description of who a startup is. So I'll allow you, Cinderella, to ask the last question, and then we'll give it back to the panelists to conclude. Thank you.
Mine is not really a question, but it's just to put emphasis on the support that we've gotten from organizations like Jacaranda. I'm an alumni of WEAC. When I started my journey with WEAC last year to where I am today, the business development that I've gotten from WEAC has made me to gain international access where we've been noticed because we've been able to formalize our business and just be recognized as a business and help the farmers. We sit on a database of 3,000 farmers that were not able to access the funds that the central bank is talking about. So our appeal is to the central bank to influence the conventional banks and the other players in the market, like Lupiya, because now she's part of the big guys. And I'm so happy to see her be part of the big guys because she understands what we go through as SMEs. So mine is just to say, people like WEAC, proudly a WEAC member and alumni and Jacaranda are really doing their part. I have been able to support the 3,000 farmers on my network, also understand that they need business development to grow their business. We've also formulated partnerships like also here, Helen is one of the alumni of WEAC, and we've signed an outgrower program where Helen is providing the spices to the market. We do the farmers we mobilize the farmers that sell to them. So it's through such interactions, such kind of programs that help us to formulate and just upskill. So thank you very much for this.
Thank you so much. So over to you, Nambola, so that we can wrap up.
Sure.
Yes, thank you.
Okay, thank you so much, and thanks to the audience for all your wonderful and very useful questions. So in the interest of time, we will go into concluding remarks from our panelists.
based on some of the issues that have come out from the audience, I think we'll take this differently. So I would like you to, under 30 seconds, to sort of give your concluding remarks. You feel free to respond to any of the issues or comments that have been raised in the audience in line with the kind of work that you're doing and the specific economic sectors that you're supporting. So I will start from my left and go the other way.
Thank you. In concluding, I think I would just want to handle one issue that Zafawe from Maureen Sumwe, she raised that ZDA is thin on the ground. Indeed, we are thin on the ground, but we have started rolling out. So we have opened up the Chipata office, we've opened up the Livingstone office, we're moving now to the other offices opening up. So that actually is in the process. Then the interaction that I think that should be there, we will still revisit the interaction so that we do not have that one-on-one for the people who are supposed to go out for other missions or other programs that are coming out. We'll go through the associations or the mother bodies so that we have that interaction. Thank you very much.
My conclusion, which is pretty much what most SMEs are echoing, and this is just inclusiveness. And so this could be inclusiveness on platforms like ZDA, a wing for specifically startups is very important. And this could even just be easily facilitated by platforms like WEAC, Jacaranda Hub, Bongo Hive. We would like to see that as startups. When it comes to the ministry and in just fostering inclusive policies, we would like to see CEC, for example, be able to provide cheaper financing for micro entrepreneurs, because I just realized that has been really categorized. For regulators, we would like to see almost immediate sandboxes like other countries have done to accommodate innovative solutions. A lot of this is happening every day. One big opportunity that Zambia, I feel, is sleeping on is social capital, and this is village banking. It's a very big avenue in which the SMEs can tap into and get financing, and very cheap financing to that. And if quickly framework without scaring the masses can be created, because the Bank of Zambia likes to put out such statements, and we get almost freaked out every time we see something in the paper. So if they can be as accommodating, that would be very would be good to see. And for platforms that are bringing in a lot of investment or fostering investments for platforms and SMEs, a lot of what we had to go through, we had the opportunity of having, and because our model is sort of different and is able to mobilize cash almost immediately, a lot of platforms don't have that opportunity because they have to really start the ground up. And so as we foster these platforms, we know investors want a return, and we at least have the opportunity to facilitate affordable or simpler requirements for these platforms to access these opportunities. And then just lastly, to conclude, my point was to drive back to the regulator, which is Bank of Zambia. We still are forbidden with a lot of requirements that you require in terms of looking at non-bank financial institutions, and we feel that needs to be revisited because looking at a lot of key players in the sector are not local but are very foreign, and so that participation we feel needs to be very inclusive and be very inclusive as well for women. Thank you.
Okay, so I'll skip MCTI, and for obvious reasons, they will be last to conclude in their remarks. I will go over to Brenda.
Thank you. I'd just like to thank the audience and all my colleagues on the panel. I think this has been a very insightful panel discussion, and we've all learned something actually. And I think we actually are united with the thought and belief that SMEs do have a very big role to play. I think they probably contribute about 70% of GDP as estimated in terms of their productivity. So just to re-emphasize that I think key has been information and awareness gap. This has been, I think, appreciated by everyone, and I hope this will go forward to be improved. Collaboration has become very important between the government, all the partners, the stakeholders, just to push forward the agenda in terms of appropriate policies, appropriate product development and design, financial literacy, as well as just putting in place the requirements just to enable the startups move into a place where we can actually incorporate them as SMEs and large players in the economic development. Just to also mention that the bank has actually put in place guidelines. We have a regulatory sandbox, which will soon be, I think, put out to all the players. We are supporting innovation. We are very excited and keen in working with digital financial platforms. This is the way to go in terms of outreach, reaching the most vulnerable people in the rural areas. So this is an area that we have recognized and are working very much with partners. So I think with those few remarks, I would just thank everyone once again and wish you a good day.
Yeah, just to also thank the audience for the time that you've given us to discuss this issue, and also the panelists. Most important to WEAC for organizing such an amazing event. I think it has been quite very insightful and important for just stakeholders across the whole ecosystem to share ideas and also learn in terms of what's existing and also how we can collaborate going forward. As the Zambia National Advisory Board for Impact Investment, obviously we're new, but we're very committed in terms of mobilizing stakeholders as well as resources, both locally but also internationally, to see how we can grow the market. And that also involves making sure that there's collaboration, as we just talked about, among key stakeholders, so that we minimize duplication, but also stakeholders are not working in isolation. So we are working through various platforms, and we are very happy that WEAC is part of our initiative that we're doing to ensure that we promote impact investment, which is very kind of emerging concept that people still don't understand, to ensure that in everything that we are doing, it's not only for businesses but also for government, helping government in impact, promote ESG principles within their framework, be it in procurement, but also consumers as well. When we are buying things, how to ensure that we are putting impact at the center of our decision making. And yeah, so just to thank everyone and thank you for this time. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So in conclusion, really, I would like to speak to the aspect that between government and the players that we are all on the same team, and we're really working towards the same goal. When we do raise issues, it's not for conflict, it is to help us forge a better understanding of what is the best approach we should be taking going forward. And I think I should be encouraging ZDA and Ministry of Commerce to continue the collaboration that they are having with the ecosystem players. But also from the ecosystem players, it's really that we need to be able to build a better and stronger resilience in terms of those ecosystem players having to work together, which is the same thing that we're asking from government in terms of partnerships. The partnerships must develop within the ecosystem players so that they're stronger in having to implement these strategies as well. Because I think they've got a greater role to play as private sector than government has. But I also like to thank Nambula and WEAC for the opportunity that they have having to put this together. I think it's very important for us to continue to dialogue, and these are platforms that are very useful for us to be able to utilize to achieve a better understanding of the ecosystem. Thank you to the audience and the media as well. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you so much. In conclusion, I will hand it over to Mr. Kamoyo Yoyo to give us his thoughts and concluding remarks from the side of government.
Okay, thank you very much, and thank you very much to the audience for demonstrating resilience. But when I was coming, I was told that the meeting will be 10 to 11:30. Now we are going above 100%, which is good. I hope this can be translated into the profit of our enterprises. Okay, just in conclusion, I would like to thank the organizers for having thought of coming up with this package that provides a platform for cross-cutting stakeholders to meet and share our respective mandates, and also candidly highlight some of the shortcomings within ourselves and also from our peers in this collaboration, which is very important. As the driver has said, the agenda is for everyone. It's not only for government or to be left only to the SMEs. It should be a concerted effort. We are all aiming to ensure that we have an upgraded socio-economic sustainable development. This is our agenda so that we pull everyone into the middle class. As you know, our vision 2030 is that we should be a middle class economy. How do we do it? Who are the key players? It's the SMEs. Who are the majority actors who should be active and be champions of this growth? It's the SMEs. So please don't feel shy to continue highlighting the challenges that you are facing, because the entire country will look up to you and blame you. That you are the ones who are responsible, but you are not doing anything. So we need to move together. We need to approach the whole issues in a concerted effort, not just leaving it to one group. From the Ministry of Commerce point of view, we welcome this kind of interaction. It's an important platform for us to interact. Like I said, our mandate is cross-cutting. It cuts across all sectors. And the embracing of the introduction of the cooperative movement in the Ministry of Commerce does not or reflects that a cooperative can be in any sector that is captured by the Ministry of Commerce. And Zambia Development Agency is the key institution with respect to SME policy implementation. Of course, there's the CEC also, and I've heard some recommendation with the making flexibility in terms of access and also increasing, reaching out to the would-be beneficiaries. So those are my just few remarks, and also to say maybe probably we need to also invest more on research, industry research. Trevor was highlighting some of the statistics. Numbers are very key because they often don't lie. Yeah, and they don't disappoint you if you are doing the right things. So probably we need to invest more on research, empirical research, and use research to launch the advocacy and the lobbying strategy from the private sector point of view. So we need to speak with numbers. We need to speak with empirical evidence, the realities in the industry, and test the other player that if you do this, really the results will be the other way. From the ministry again, we are taking the SME as an important aspect, and that's why we have mainstreamed it at policy level, at institutional level. At policy level, we have the SME policy. At institutional level, we have created or established institutions like ZDA and the CEC and the others to deal with upstream and downstream challenges for SMEs. So please, speak your mind so that you get what your share of the intervention. Then at the corporation level, we have projects in the ministry. Maybe probably the information is not flowing as it should, but I think we'll use this platform to be able to explain to you what are existing opportunities for access to supply side support. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Kamayoyo, for giving those conclusive remarks, and please convey our gratitude to the Permanent Secretary for his continued support and for opening his door to enable such engagements. I would just like to thank all the panelists for your contributions. This has been amazing. Thank you to Trevor Hambai from Development Finance Association. Thanks to Hagai Chomba, National Advisory Board for Impact Investing in Zambia. Thank you to Brenda Mwanza. Thank you so much, and we were very happy to have the bank's representation, and thank you for your thoughts around the issues being discussed today. I'd like also to thank Mr. Musentekwa for his usual contributions and support. We are grateful for all the work that ZDA is engaged in. And to Evelyn, obviously, thank you to Lupiya, and great work on everything that you're doing in supporting upcoming startups to take the route that you have taken. So I'd also just like to thank all of you for being present. We will share a conclusive article that will be generated from this discussion. It's part of our ongoing advocacy work. Thank you so much. Have a good day. So the Women's Entrepreneurship Access Center, WEAC, has an interest to support collaboration that focuses on establishing structures and platforms that enhance entrepreneurship ecosystem strengthening in Zambia. And through platforms like this, where we are having a panel discussion, engaging various key players, enterprise support organizations, private sector, and government, to look at some of the key aspects that are relevant to putting SMEs at the forefront of economic recovery, given the COVID situation, is a major key step in supporting the ecosystem locally. So we're very happy that at this point we have a number of enterprise support partners that are looking to address some of the key economic drivers that will enhance SME support, but also provide a larger platform where SMEs, entrepreneurs, and startups can leverage on opportunities locally, but also within the region in order to move their businesses forward. Our interest is to see the growth of the startup, first of all, and the growth of these businesses, but also to ensure that we are engaging in very effective collaboration to ensure that this is actually a platform that provides a bigger audience, promotes information flow, and also enables very inclusive participation from all sectors of the economy.